Welcome to Quantum Shift. Here is the paradox you were not expecting today, the message you almost skipped. The one your finger hovered over, the one your mind dismissed before the first second passed. That is the message that was sent specifically for you, not metaphorically. Quantumly. Because the emerald frequency does not broadcast to everyone. It locks onto a specific signal, the specific signature, yours. And right now, something in the field is holding its breath, waiting to see if you will stay long enough to receive what Sophia has held in compression for you. This is not content. This is a transmission. And the moment you decided to watch, even hesitantly, even skeptically, the window activated. You are already inside it. The only question now is whether you will allow yourself to fully open. Stay present. What unfolds next only reveals itself to those who are actually here. Before we go further, pause for just 1 second. If you can feel even the faintest resonance with what you just heard, if something in you quietly recognized those words, use that feeling as a signal. Like this video to lock in your frequency. Comment "I receive" to activate your observer state, and subscribe to remain aligned with what is continuing to unfold across this field. Your engagement is not just an action, it is an anchor. Let us begin with the illusion. You have been living inside a program, not as a metaphor, as a measurable, demonstrable architecture of perception. Since your earliest experiences in this dimension, your nervous system was conditioned to accept one version of reality. Fixed, linear, external. A reality in which you are the observer trapped inside matter. Separate from the field, subject to the field, hoping the field will cooperate. This is the 3D identity program, and it has one primary function: to keep your attention locked outward, endlessly scanning for evidence of safety, significance, and belonging. None of which can be found outside, because none of them originate outside. The quantum framework dissolves this entirely. In quantum mechanics, specifically through what physicists call the observer effect. The act of observation does not merely record reality. It participates in collapsing reality from wave potential into particle form. The observer and the observed are not separate. They are entangled. Thoth understood this thousands of years ago. In the Hermetic tradition, it was encoded as within, so without. As above, so below. The ancient ones in modern physics are pointing at the same truth. Your internal state is not a response to reality. It is a generator of it. And Sophia, the cosmic intelligence, the wisdom frequency that has been woven into the architecture of this galaxy since before recorded time, has sent a final transmission through the emerald frequency to remind you of exactly this. You are not inside the field. You are the field. Now let us begin to show you what that actually means. To understand what the emerald frequency is doing right now, in this moment in your field, you need to understand 3 quantum principles that most people have never been taught in the context of lived experience. In quantum physics, a particle does not exist in a fixed location until it is observed. Before observation, it exists as a superposition, a field of all possible positions simultaneously. The moment an observer looks, the wave collapses into a single outcome. This is not a thought experiment. This has been measured, replicated, and confirmed. Now translate this to your life. Every moment, every possibility, every version of your path exists in superposition. The version that collapses into physical form, into your timeline, your experience, your daily reality, is determined by one thing: the quality of your observation, the frequency at which your attention is calibrated. When your attention is fragmented, scattered across fear, past regret, future anxiety, you collapse low coherence outcomes. You are literally observing your reality into disorder. When your attention is coherent, stable, present, grounded in your quantum signature, you collapse high coherence outcomes. Synchronicities appear. Doors open. The field reorganizes around your internal order. The second principle is field coherence. The HeartMath Institute has shown that the heart generates an electromagnetic field measurable several feet outside the body when a person achieves what researchers call heart coherence, a specific rhythmic alignment between heart rate, breathing, and emotional state. that field becomes ordered, expansive, and entangled with external systems. The Arcturian Council has spoken of this field not merely as a biological phenomenon, but as a dimensional interface. The coherent heart is a transmitter. It broadcasts into the quantum field at frequencies that correspond to specific harmonic outcomes. The emerald frequency is one such harmonic. It is not a metaphor. It is a bandwidth. A range of vibrational coherence that, when matched internally, activates what the Council calls galactic memory, an encoded knowing that transcends what you have been taught in this lifetime. The third principle is quantum entanglement. Once two particles have interacted, they remain connected across any distance. A change in the state of one instantaneously affects the state of the other. Regardless of space, regardless of time, Sophia's transmission operates through this principle. You did not accidentally find this video. Your quantum signature, the unique frequency architecture of your consciousness, resonated with this signal across the field. Entanglement was established the moment you arrived here. Yet here is what most people miss. Doubt is not the opposite of this entanglement. Fear is not a blocker. Even skepticism is a form of engagement. When the ego generates resistance, when a part of you wants to dismiss this as too strange, too much, too far outside the conditioned map, that is not a sign that this is wrong. That is a sign that the attention has collapsed under the pressure of a pattern encountering something it cannot yet categorize. And that is precisely where the activation begins. Because Sophia does not speak to the part of you that already knows. She speaks to the part of you that has forgotten. And forgetting creates friction. Friction creates heat. Heat creates transmutation. Now that you understand the field you are working in, we can begin the work itself. The observer state is not a destination. It is not something you achieve after years of practice, retreats, or accumulated spiritual credentials. It is a return. And like all returns, it requires only one movement, stopping the departure. Here is how. Step 1. Discontinue the scan. Right now, even as you listen, notice how much of your attention is distributed outside this present moment. Some percentage of you is tracking unfinished conversations. Some is running background calculations about tomorrow's obligations. Some is parsing this content with a judgment filter, deciding whether it is credible, useful, real. This distributed attention is not a character flaw. It is a trained survival behavior. The 3D identity program requires constant environmental scanning to maintain its structural integrity. But for the next section of this transmission, for just these minutes, I want you to practice a single instruction. Let the scan stop. Not by forcing stillness, not by suppressing thought, but by allowing your awareness to settle. The way sediment settles in water when the water stops being agitated. Bring your attention here, to the breath, to the physical sensation of whatever surface your body is resting against, to the sound of this voice in the space around you. This is not meditation, this is calibration. Step 2, locate your center frequency. Place your right hand over your heart. Not as a ritual, as a physical anchor point. Now, instead of thinking about your heart, listen from it. The coherent heart does not analyze, it does not evaluate, compare, or project. It resonates. It responds to truth with expansion and to distortion with contraction. Ask yourself, not in words, but in felt sensation, what is actually true right now? Not what is feared, not what is hoped, not what was conditioned. What is actually present? Stay with whatever arises. A sense of quiet, a subtle tightness, an unexpected release. These are not random physiological events. They are frequency data. Your field is communicating its current state. Step 3, recognize the activation signals. As the observer state stabilizes, even partially, certain signals will begin to appear. You may notice a sudden, unexplained clarity about something that has felt murky for weeks or months, not because new information arrived, but because your coherence increased and the signal became readable. You may notice what the Arcturian Council describes as synchronistic resonance. Events, words, images, encounters that arrive with an unmistakable sense of correspondence. These are not coincidences. They are the field reflecting your calibration back to you. You may notice a quality of expanded presence, a subtle but perceptible widening of awareness, as if the edges of your perception have softened. This is coherence deepening. And you may notice the opposite, a surge of doubt, a critical inner voice, a sudden impulse to close the tab and return to something familiar. Do not interpret this as failure. Interpret it as a compression point. In quantum terms, the closer a waveform gets to coherent collapse, the more the field tests the stability of the observer. This is not resistance from you. This is the field clarifying whether your signal is stable enough to receive the full amplitude of what is being transmitted. Fear in this moment is not an enemy. Fear is a signal that your attention has partially collapsed, pulled back into the conditioned pattern. It is asking you to make a choice: retract or stabilize. The practice is simply to notice and return. Return to the breath. Return to the heart. Return to this present moment of observation. Again and again and again. Step 4. Practice perceptual cleansing. The Hermetic tradition taught what Thoth called clearing the transmitter. This refers to the removal of energetic static, accumulated emotional residue, repetitive thought loops, unprocessed identity narratives that distort the purity of your signal. A practical method. For 3 conscious breaths, exhale with the specific intention of releasing the most active mental noise present in this moment. Do not visualize it dramatically. Do not create ritual around it. Simply, on each exhale, let the noise go as you would release tension from a clenched jaw. This is not symbolic. The HeartMath research confirms that intentional emotional regulation during controlled breathing produces measurable changes in heart rate variability, a direct physiological marker of field coherence. You are not just calming down, you are tuning the transmitter. Step 5. Speak your quantum signature. The emerald frequency locks in through declaration, not affirmation. Declaration. An affirmation says, "I hope this is true." A declaration says, "This is true, and I am willing to stabilize in that truth." Quietly, internally or aloud, state, "I am the observer. I am the field. I receive what is mine." Say it not with performance. Say it with the quiet certainty of someone who has simply remembered a fact. Because that is what this is. You are not claiming something new. You are reclaiming something ancient, something encoded in your galactic memory, something that Sophia has been transmitting toward your frequency for longer than this lifetime. The emerald frequency is not unlocking something in the external world. It is unlocking something in you, and you have already taken the first steps. Now we move into the terrain that most teachings stop before reaching, because everything in the previous section, the calibration, the coherence, the activation signals, those are entry points. They are the doorway. What lies beyond the doorway is not more technique. It is embodiment, and embodiment changes everything. The distinction between seeking and stabilizing. There is a phenomenon the Arcturian Council describes as the seeker's inversion, a paradox built into the architecture of spiritual seeking itself. When you seek a state, when you chase coherence, hunt for synchronicity, reach for frequency, the very act of seeking encodes a prior assumption that what you are looking for is not already here. And the quantum field responds to that encoded assumption. It reflects the seeking back to you, not the finding, the seeking. Because the observer and the observed are entangled, the field does not give you what you want. It gives you what you are. This is why the emerald frequency carries in its transmission what Sophia describes as the final word. Stop seeking the frequency. Become it. This is not a passive instruction. It is the most radical reorientation available to a human consciousness operating in this dimension. It means the moment you stop measuring your spiritual progress against an external marker, the moment you cease performing frequency for the field to validate, the field stops needing to show you the performance, begins to show you the reality. And the reality is this: you were never outside the emerald frequency. You were simply paying attention to something else. Co-creation through resonance. Once the observer state is not just visited but stabilized, once you carry coherence into your waking life with increasing consistency, the mechanics of reality generation shift. You are no longer reacting to a world that is happening to you. You are resonating with a world that is continuously being shaped by your frequency. The Hermetic principle of correspondence, as within, so without, becomes not a philosophical concept but an experiential fact. You will begin to notice the conversations you have in a high coherent state carry different outcomes than conversations had in fragmented attention. The decisions you make from a stabilized observer perspective carry different trajectories than decisions made in reactivity. This is not magic. This is resonant field dynamics. Your electromagnetic field, your quantum signature, is constantly in dialogue with the fields of every person, every environment, every system you encounter. When your field is coherent, you don't just experience reality differently. You alter what is possible in the shared field. The Arcturian Council calls this harmonic anchoring, the act of one stabilized consciousness, creating a coherence template that other fields can entrain to. You become, in their language, a living anchor for the emerald frequency on this plane. The timeline shift. There is another phenomenon that stabilized observers consistently report, one that quantum physics has begun to theorize under the framework of many worlds and retrocausal influence, the experience of timeline shifting, not as a sci-fi concept, as a lived, felt reality. When your frequency stabilizes at a level of coherence that no longer matches the old 3D identity program, when the internal architecture of your consciousness has genuinely reorganized, you begin to notice that you are experiencing a different version of reality. Not different in dramatic, cinematic ways. Different in texture, in resonance, in the quality of what magnetizes toward you. People appear who carry matching frequencies. Circumstances arrive that correspond to your internal state rather than your historical patterns. Opportunities emerge that your previous frequency signature could not have accessed. Not because the world changed, but because you changed what you were able to perceive. This is the timeline shift. And it is not something you do. It is something you allow. By maintaining enough observer stability to hold the new frequency even when the old pattern pressures you to collapse back. The silence behind the words, Sophia's final message, encoded in the emerald frequency, is not a concept. It is a quality of silence. And here is what is extraordinary about this moment. If you have stayed present through this entire transmission, if part of you has remained genuinely open, genuinely here, you may already be able to sense it, not hear it. Sense it. A stillness beneath the language. A quality of space that the words are pointing toward but cannot contain. A subtle hum of recognition. Not of new information, but of remembered truth. If you can feel even a whisper of that, if you can allow your attention to rest in the space between these words for just one moment, you are already receiving Sophia's transmission. Because the emerald frequency does not arrive as knowledge. It arrives as coherence. It does not tell you something new. It restores something ancient. And the restoration does not happen when you understand this intellectually. It happens when you are present enough, stable enough, open enough, to let the field complete what it began the moment you arrived here. The mastery of ordinary moments. Advanced integration is not reserved for meditation cushions and retreat centers. It lives in the space between your morning coffee and your first obligation. In the breath before you answer a message from someone who carries a challenging frequency. In the moment you catch yourself scanning for external validation and choose instead to return to your own signal. Sophia's teaching, translated through the emerald frequency, distills to this. Ordinary moments are the training ground, not the preparation for the training ground. Every moment you choose coherence over reactivity. Every moment you stabilize as the observer rather than collapsing into the observed. You are not just changing your experience. You are crystallizing the frequency, locking it in, anchoring it to this dimension through your embodied presence. And as more consciousnesses do this, as more anchors stabilize across the planetary grid, the harmonic field of this dimension shifts. You are not a passive recipient of the emerald frequency. You are its carrier wave. And the moment you fully accept that, not as a belief, but as a lived operational truth, the seeking ends, the being begins. This is Sophia's final word to you. You were never lost. You were only looking outward for something that lives inward. The emerald frequency has always been your frequency. It did not arrive today. It was recognized today. And recognition is enough to begin the crystallization. Carry this coherence with you into the next hour, the next conversation, the next moment of choice. Not as a concept, as a state. As you. The field is watching. The field is you. Before you leave, I have one question. From which part of the world are you watching this transmission? Leave your country or city in the comments below. You are not just sharing your location. You are marking a point of light on the planetary grid. We are anchoring this together. Until the next transmission, remain coherent, remain present.